Question is it time to sell your Apple shares? Brett Arends thinks so, and that's why we're going to go to him in Boston. Brett, thank you very much for being there. Please explain yourself. You stand in a minority of possibly one with this one. You're describing Apple as a fashion company.
Well, wait a sec. Let me separate this out. The first is I haven't necessarily said it is time to sell Apple, but I am increasingly nervous about the stock. Look, there's a lot of maths. I mean, look, you can run the maths to see how this could get to $1,000 a share, and anything can happen. My bigger question about Apple, and the thing that I don't think enough people are focused on, is the extent to which Wall Street's thinking and the typical investors thinking about some of this company's appeal is upside down. People say, look, Apple's a wonderful stock because everybody wants Apple products, even when they're no different or no better or not much different from the competition. Well, actually, that's a problem because ultimately, look, go into Best Buy. I'm always astonished. I go into Best Buy and I see everyone crowding around the iPads. And meanwhile, there are all these Android tablets that frankly are just as good that no one wants to look at, even though they're being discounted. At some point, you have to recognize that that's a brand or fashion issue, not a technology issue. I mean, it's only a few years ago that the iPhone was the only such product in the world, and was a massive innovation and changed the way basically people view cell phones. That was just a fantastic innovation and a great success. But once the competition is making comparable products, and you could give the edge either way. You could say I prefer iPhone or I prefer Android. But once you've got comparable products, it no longer makes the same kind of compelling technological sense.
So
this is a fashion company.
Brett, hold on. Julia is itching to get in. You got to give her a chance.
Okay, Brett. So I want to push back a little bit on your theory. First of all, I love that you do this annually. Like you just throw some fuel into the flames of the Apple mania. But also, I don't know that it's really, I mean, I agree with you that you could say maybe there's a 30% difference, right? Maybe Android is only 10 to 30% less good as Apple if you measure everything, or maybe you want to call it flat. But either way, I think you could make a case that automobiles is a similar situation, and there's plenty of situations where premium brands are able to maintain that price difference, right? Just above and beyond the difference in quality.
Listen. No, we're sort of not arguing as much as you may think. I'm not saying that Apple's brand is unimportant or whatever. What I'm saying is you now have a stock that is valued at $550 billion. The amount of value, market value, added to Apple stock just since Steve Jobs died is equal to the entire market cap of Johnson & Johnson. It's added about 180. In fact, it's up another, whatever it is, 4% today. It literally has added $190 billion since Steve Jobs died, and that is the same, that's the entire market cap of Johnson & Johnson. My problem is how much of that value is accounted for simply by a fashion. And listen, the reality is these fashions change.
It's actually gone up. It's actually gone up since you've been speaking.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen. I mean, listen, I remember when I was being told absolutely categorically that Nokia was going to, this was back in 2000, I was in London, Nokia was going to dominate the world. Everybody, they had like a 50% market share of phones, and they were ahead of everybody, and everybody was going to have Nokia phones, and then everyone was going to have Palm Pilots, and then everyone was going to have, the Motorola Razr. People couldn't get them fast enough. You go back in time, there are things always in fashion. The problem is, something that's in fashion inherently will end up out of fashion because people want to show that they've moved on. They say, oh, that's so 2010 or whatever. Just, fashions change by virtue of being fashions. And that, of course, is a challenge for Apple. I'm not saying that Apple is a bad product, nor am I saying necessarily it's a bad stock. On many measures, you could argue it's cheap. It's got tons of cash, and when you back that out, you're not looking at an expensive stock. My problem is I think people need to understand better that what they think is the greatest strength of Apple is actually a vulnerability.
Great points as always, Brett Arends. One person who's always in fashion, of course, Julia Angwin. But thank you very much, Brett Arends with Smart Money.